Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to stand out of the way of this massive screen because my hair's going to get in the way, and then I'll take a seat in a second. Welcome, everybody, to this wonderful panel here. It's called Changing Careers into Football, supported by Mishcon de Reya. Welcome, one and all. Wonderful to see you all here today. It's never too late for a career change, even in football. So the reason why we're here today is because we're going to be sharing our stories. Would you believe me that for 8 years, I worked on the railway before I made the switch into sports broadcasting. So if you want to know the reason why there are leaves on the line or when engineering trains are overrunning, I can give you the whole spiel, even to this day, because I worked in the comms team for 8 years. And then London 2012 came along and I made the decision to switch into sports broadcasting, and here I am today. So, but you're not here to hear about me, you're here to hear about our fabulous panellists here, as it says up on this wonderful screen. So here's the plan. We're going to have a bit of a chat with you all, talk about our experiences. I've got some questions for our special VIPs here to my right. And then, around about 3 o'clock or so, we're going to open up the floor to questions. And I'm going to come around with my mic. I might pick on one of you just to get the session going, but we want to make this interactive as much as possible. So we'd love to have as many questions as we can between 3 o'clock and 3:10, and then I'm going to throw it back to our esteemed panellists, where we're going to wrap up. And then at 3:15, I think it's time for a tea and coffee, I understand. And normally by that time, I need a cup of tea anyway. So let's get going. My name is Batson. Welcome. I'm a sports broadcaster. I work in football and tennis. But as I said, this isn't just about me. I've got some wonderful panellists here with me today. And rather than me introducing them, I thought they could introduce themselves. And by the way, they were given a heads up first, so it's not a surprise at all. So, starting to my right.
Hi, I'm Floss. I'm a professional personal development and mindset coach, and I work with professionals in the football industry to help build up their sense of self in an industry that is quite intense and often difficult to work in.
Hello everybody, great to see you all here today. Thank you for coming along. My name's Cassie, I'm Operations Manager at Brighton and Hove Albion Girls Academy. So I look after about 75 young women who are hoping to become professional footballers in time. And prior to that, I spent 25 years working in the media. I was a head of commercial content for Future Publishing. I was an operations director for a client marketing company. And before that, I edited Sky Movies magazine. So any of you got that dropping through your letterbox every month? I was the editor of it. So very new to football and great to see everyone here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Debbie Cook. I'm the Chief Executive of Grimsby Town Football Club. I've only worked in football for the last 21 months. Was plucked out of my Chief Executive role in a charity. Before I came into football, I'd been a Chief Exec for about 10, 11 years, and before that I'd done 22 years in local government. So hopefully I have quite a different perspective. And I should say, before we even get going, that having come to this conference last year and been here today, I'm very much aware of how fortunate I was to be asked by our new owners to take that position, given the hard work that goes in, women putting in to get to be Chief Exec.
Brilliant stuff. Can I just check before we continue? We've got any Southampton fans in the house? No, that's good. Congratulations on Grimsby knocking out Southampton. Oh, there we go. I just wanted to check the sense of the room first. But no, massive congratulations. So let's start with that question. I guess is, why did you get into football? Let's start with that.
So I've always really liked football, and even when I was in my local government career, I found myself helping out with a team in Derbyshire called Gresley Rovers, who had an FA Trophy campaign in the 90s, and my boss just happened to be involved with them as their secretary, so found myself sort of helping out there. And I guess the reason that I've got involved in football, not just because I love the game, but that was a hobby, was because I genuinely believe, and as do my board, that a football club should be the beating heart of the place it represents. There was a debate earlier about football clubs and the role in terms of social change, and the question was, what can football clubs do? And my view is, what can football clubs be? And I know that without a doubt, if our football isn't going very well, I don't have the permission really. I don't have that mandate to really develop our role in the community and make sure that we're doing what we set out to do right at the very start of our term in terms of our values. But I do feel that if we can get the football right, and if we can be seen to make continuous improvement across all areas of the football club, that particularly for a town like Grimsby, where there's lots of areas of social deprivation and where you don't have a big rugby club that you can support, the football club is everything. It's a theatre where it doesn't even matter whether you like football. You can come into our football club and all of a sudden you have a commonality, a shared just a shared connection with the people around you, and I really want to use the power of that for good.
I like the sound of that very much. When was the light bulb moment for you, made you think, actually, I want to work in football and make the switch into the game?
I've been a football fan since I was 7 years old, and I'm a Liverpool fan, so yay, come on Liverpool, Champions League tonight. I never felt at home in football. I grew up in the 70s when women didn't play. As far as I knew, they didn't play. I didn't come from a football family. My dad loves rugby and Formula One, but hates football. I had no home that I could find in the game. And I think for a really long time, I turned my back on it because I didn't feel at home. I didn't feel at home when I went to watch football. My first ever game was at Sheffield United when I was 18 years old. And a man next to me was chanting an expletive that begins with C that I won't repeat, but he did that for the entire game. And I just remember thinking, I don't think I'm at home here. I don't think this is my place. So I turned my back on it for about 25 years. I still would watch Liverpool. I'd still follow the game. But then I got made redundant from my head of commercial content job in 2016. And I thought to myself then, okay, I'm going to just have a look around and see what's out there for women who love football as much as I do. Now, it's changed. You know, this is 30 years on from when I was a little girl and told I couldn't play in our football competition at school. So I answered a tweet that was put out by a group called Canifa, and they said, yeah, come and be media manager for our tournament, which was the World Football Cup, not the World Cup. This was held in 2018 in London, not 2018 in Russia. And I realised that I could actually have a job in football. And I feel like that moment, everything changed for me. It was a true sliding doors moment. I could have carried on doing my freelance project management job, which I was doing, or I could throw my hat into the football ring, and I chose football. And can I say, I never regret a single moment of that decision. It has changed my life for the best.
Floss, what was your sliding doors moment?
So I feel a bit of a fraud up here because actually I've worked in the football industry, sports industry for nearly 20 years. So in that respect, I'm not new to football. I'm not a latecomer in football, but what I have been through is the ins and outs, and as your life changes, the challenges that you face. So for me, my sliding doors moment was recent. I have a young family, so I didn't kind of talk about my career. I've worked at the Premier League. I've been a match manager at Chelsea, Norwich City, QPR. I've worked at Norwich City for a couple of years, and I guess my sliding doors moment was a couple of years ago when I just actually couldn't cope with it. I felt that I was failing at my family, and I thought that working in football was just too hard, because how could you work in football and manage a family? So I thought, my answer is to leave. I can't do it anymore. I'll just leave the industry and work in commercial property. Thank goodness that didn't work out, because my sliding doors moment was that I realised that actually it is an industry I love, and you can work in it and have a family and manage it, but you need to make sure that you have a strong sense of self. So I spent that time to build that up, and now what I do is to help people like me 2 years ago not to do what I did and just collapse, but actually stay in it, find your purpose, find your route, keep your boundaries, and enjoy working in an industry that can be really tough, but is amazing.
An industry that can be really tough, but is amazing. So being a CEO of FA quarter-finalists, Grimsby Town, I'll stop going on about it, because I just think it's an amazing story. Of being that, pretty much everybody in this room will know that being a CEO is very male-dominated. So for anybody who's looking to work their way up the ladder, how did you cope with that? And what things need to change so we can move the conversation forward to encourage more women to become CEOs of football clubs?
I think what's really important to say is that when I became a chief exec in football, it was at a time where so we had new owners who bought the club in May 21, and they appointed me in June. And so there was a general narrative about resetting the football club. So I think I was quite fortunate there in that, we were really clear. I was given an automatic position on the board. There are 5 board members, 2 of us are women. Our owners have really strong values, really appreciate diversity in the workplace. But that said, I was a woman coming into a football club that probably hadn't seen any staff change at a senior level for about 25 to 30 years. The chief exec in post at the time, his dad was chief exec before him. And so there was a real culture at the football club around how things used to be done. So without a doubt, I knew that there was going to be challenge. How I cope with it, how I would cope in any industry. I tried to be confident about my abilities as a chief executive. I know about running organisations. I hope I know about good leadership, and all of those business models that need to go into any organisation. But of course, I felt like a real imposter in football because I'd not worked in the football industry. So I tried to stick to what I knew. I tried to be authentic. At times, I showed my own vulnerability, but as in any walk of life, I built relationships. I tried to build new relationships based on trust, based on the fact that I did what I said I'd do, based on the fact that my values hopefully come through in everything that I do. I think I'd be lying if I said it was easy. The last 20 months have probably been the most challenging of my whole career, and I would say both personally and professionally.
Can I ask why? Would you mind? From a work perspective, you don't have to say anything personal, of course, only if you wish to, but from a work perspective, why has it been that way?
Because I think I'm surrounded by football experts, and I don't profess to be a football expert. But what I do know is that when I've asked questions into the football, I'm really clear about my role and the manager's role, but obviously I manage the whole football club. But when I ask questions around our academy pathway, or what are we doing about our more senior players, how are we making them more comfortable so that they can focus on the game, knowing that actually we've got their future, we're looking after them. When I ask questions that for me are natural, in any good environment to get the best out of your people, the response has generally been, that's a really good question, but we're not tending to ask those in football. But I think that they've been challenging for various reasons. I think sometimes when you're leading change in football as a woman, the comments around that can be quite personal, and I don't think they would be if I were male. I think accepting that I'll never please all of our fans, no matter how much I think the club is moving forward and what our success, has been tough for me to sort of come to terms with. And of course, it's an environment where people are assuming that probably I'm not really running the whole football club, I'm just running the club shop. Or, when I walk into the boardroom with my husband, they naturally assume he's the chief exec and I'm his guest. I can I can cope with that because I think to myself, do you know what, I'll let my results do the talking. But that comes at its own personal cost, because if you've already got a bit of imposter syndrome, and I think we probably all have, then that just exaggerates it. And then if you layer on if I do anything in life, I give absolutely everything to it. So when you layer that into football, you become passionate about the club that you're working at. It becomes you. You can't find a place where the football club stops and you start. Then you've got no life outside of football either. And it's just coming to terms with all of that. But I think the key to that, and hopefully what I did, was I built decent relationships. I built trusting relationships. I reached out to women and men that I respected and I felt would listen to the situation that I'm in. But in terms of what we can do to support one another, probably going to make a little bit of a controversial comment. I think, having come to this conference for the last 2 years, it is full of women supporting women. But in my career, I've walked into rooms where no one in that room has known me, but I've automatically felt hostility. And I have also not been supported by other women because I'm a woman. And I think we just need to be really clear that my success doesn't come at the expense of anyone else's. So I want to celebrate everyone's success in here, and I want them to celebrate mine. But I think we have to be honest about that. I think this is a unique group of people, and I haven't seen that from everyone in the industry.
I will back what you're saying in terms of, as you called it, a controversial take. I don't think it's controversial at all. It's the same way in media and broadcasting as well. There are those who are out there that will celebrate with you and support you and lift you. And there are others, when you walk into a room, there is that hostility. You can feel it. You know, us women, we tune into things, that sixth sense that we have. And so not what you're saying is controversial at all. So thank you for sharing that with us. Floss, you've worked with lots of people across all levels of the game. Were you working, you said you worked at Norwich. Were you there when Delia was there? What was your relationship like with her? Because she was and still is the public face of the club. And how do you help people find confidence when moving into the industry?
Yes, so I was at Norwich City when Delia is still there. And she is massively supportive of the club and of women in the club. There is a female executive director at Norwich City who is fantastic, and the culture at Norwich City is an inclusive one, and they're very conscious of the culture and looking after their staff. They won't mind me saying that actually they are a client of mine. So I look after staff members at Norwich City, so backroom staff, on the business side, coaches. So they do have a good, and that does stem from Delia at the top. As I said, I work across a broad range of people, and I've forgotten the question.
That's okay. The question was, how do you help people find confidence when moving into the industry?
What I try and recommend is building up a sense of self. That's really what I do. So I work with the human, and it's about everybody is different and everybody has their own strengths of that human. It's easy to say everyone has their strengths. It's very difficult for each of you, if I were to say to you, tell me your strengths, you could probably give me 2, 3, maybe 4, but after that, you'd probably be struggling, I'd be confident to say, because it's by yourself, it's not a natural, and especially for women, it's not a natural place to stand. We've heard this in I don't know which breakouts you're in, but we've heard it, it's been a common theme today. So working with someone else actually makes that easier. So I try and I don't ask that direct question, tell me your strengths. I actually ask for the story. So it doesn't matter what position you're in, or if you work in banking, or if you're at university and you want to break into football, or if you have come through a career in magazines. It's about, tell me your stories. Tell me what have been the great things. What are you proud of? And actually it's using those moments to then translate those into, okay, so what is it? Okay, you want to work in football. Presumably, if you want to work in football, you actually have a bit of an idea of what area you like and what you're interested in. So let's use those strengths to then target those areas and highlight them. So it doesn't matter what level you're at. It doesn't matter if you're a coach or a chief exec. It's the same.
I remember, Cassie, I had a conversation with my parents when all the years of working the railway, and I was going to go from, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, money in the bank every 28 days, X amount of annual leave. And I'm having that conversation with my parents going, I'm actually going to leave all that and become freelance or work my way up, and I'm going to go into sports broadcasting. My dad, because my dad was self-employed and now he's retired, he was self-employed since he was 16 till he retired, loved the idea. My mum, on the other hand, she and I had to have several conversations about it because she was really worried. She was worried for me, worried about my finances. I just bought a house as well. I don't know, it's such madness I was thinking at that time. My question is, when you decided to make the switch, what challenging conversations did you have with family, friends, and even with co-workers?
I think I was really lucky that my partner, Brad, just said, go for it. I was really unsure about taking the job with Brighton. I knew it would mean, all the things I love so much, which is going on holiday, having a weekend, having a regular 9-to-5 job. All those things were going out of the window. And I remember saying to him really clearly when Brighton offered me the job, which I didn't expect that I would get, of course, because being a rather unconfident woman, I had no idea that I was actually going to be given the job. They phoned me up on a Wednesday morning and said, we'd like to offer it to you. I actually had my list of feedback questions. Why didn't I get the job? Please, can you give me some feedback? So when they actually phoned me, I don't know, I was completely taken aback. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to need some time to think about this. And I said to Brad, as we walked around Waitrose, do you think that I should do this? And he just said, I think you should absolutely 100% do it. Because if you don't do it, you'll always be saying to me, what if I'd taken that job? And I'm so grateful to him because I'm so lucky that he is that sort of person. He totally backs me up. I don't see him from 7 in the morning until 9 at night sometimes. He's always waiting for me with, I'm getting a bit emotional, sorry. He's always waiting for me with a glass of wine, so I'm always very touched by that.
Is that red or white?
White.
Good.
See you later in the bar. So I think that was the serious conversation I had to have. My dad was absolutely 100% for me going for it, and again said, do it. My friends don't understand it, and I think that's probably the part of my job that I find the hardest, is that sometimes I don't see them. I miss people's parties, weddings. I can't just drop everything on a Saturday and go out shopping with somebody or go for lunch. I think that's the thing that you should probably know if you're not already working in football, and if you are working in football, you probably know well enough that your life changes forever, and it's an amazing change, but you do have to have a reality check. Is it going to be right for you? And I think that's something that is really, really important for everyone to recognise. And it might not be. And if it's not, that's absolutely fine. But you do have to dedicate a lot of your life to the game that we all love.
Yeah, forget about watching Netflix and things like that. It is like last night. I was watching the tennis last night. I was keeping across because it's Indian Wells right now. Keeping across the scores. First thing when I wake up in the morning, when I switch off the alarm, check the sports headlines. It is your life. I'm already having to think that I'm not going to see Mum on Mother's Day because I'm working. And back in when I first started, that was a difficult conversation to have. Now we're a few years down the line. She's like, "It's okay, dear. Doesn't matter. I'll see you at some point." But you're absolutely right. It's that reality check. So I guess, Debbie, those same kind of question for you when you decided to make that switch. Did you have any challenging conversations? Did anybody say to you, "What are you doing that for? Are you mad?"
I certainly didn't realise what I'd let myself in for. And I think it's fair to say that I consider myself incredibly lucky because I've been married for a long time with a really supportive husband. So obviously I'd been chief exec for quite a while before that, and some of my roles took me away. We've got 2 girls; they haven't always been grown up. So when I've been a chief exec, they were still really small. So he's been incredibly supportive, and that has helped massively. I think the key for us, and I realise that this is quite a privileged position, is that as a family, we've almost gone on the journey together. And I think that's what's made it work. And also in terms of the way we're trying to run the football club, I'm trying to run a staff team that it feels like family, because you are absolutely in it all together. And our board, so we've experienced some amazing highs during the 20-21 months that I've been there, but we've experienced them together, and we've also then I think that's a bit like money in the bank for when things aren't going so well, because I've learnt a lot about myself in the last 20 months, and the majority of that was when it wasn't going so well. You really test your principles, your values. My first season at Grimsby, we were promoted, but we started really well. And then during the middle of the season, we went 10 games without a win. And the fans were baying for our manager to be sacked. And everything was rubbish. It didn't matter how much improvement there was going on off the pitch. The football wasn't working. And we just dug in and stuck to our values and stuck to what we said we were going to do. And I think it's those kind of things that have not getting too low, as they say, with the lows, and too highs with the highs, and then experiencing them all together and making sure that we celebrate together, as I think has got us through and keeps getting us through.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of the family coming along with you with the journey as well, because then they can share those special moments, like when Grimsby were promoted, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. My daughters are 20 and 23, and luckily they both love football. If I'm really honest with you, my 20-year-old, I'm not quite sure that when she first started coming, it was for all the right reasons. But she's really, really, really clear now.
Or did you put her straight?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. When she said, "Mum," I won't name the player. One of your players has contacted me on Instagram, and I said, "You do not ever engage with any of our players," and that was kind of the conversation. But I think motivation, she might have just needed putting on the right track for 5 minutes.
Oh, I love that. That's a great story. One to tell when she gets married. But anyway, moving on. Right. So just a reminder, everybody, we're rapidly coming up to around about 3 o'clock or so. So I will be opening the floor for questions. So I will roam around. If no hands go up, I will pick on someone. It's like being back in school, isn't it? But hopefully you've got some questions. We've got some our fabulous panellists here. So around about 3 o'clock or so, we'll open up the floor. Male allies. This has been a bit of a topic that's been talked about today. Floss, do you have male allies? And what are your thoughts around that in football?
Yeah, so, as I said, I joined football 20 years ago. There weren't that many women. I was at the Premier League when the Premier League was actually in a house in London. The toilet was a bathroom with a bath in it.
Was that Gloucester Square?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gloucester Place, yeah.
Gloucester Place, yes.
Connaught Place and then Gloucester Place. There were women, but there were a lot of men. And to be honest, I just thought it was normal. It wasn't a barrier. But through sort of being there and as it grew, you get to know people really well. When things are small, you build that bond, that family. And actually the people that I worked with then are now at the top of the tier of the Premier League. So in terms of some allies, yes, they're there. I've recently actually just completed the Women in Football mentoring program, and my mentor was a male, and he was amazing. In fact, I'm sitting here now thanks to him, in terms of saying, "Come on, Floss, get yourself out there and do it." So I think that it is very important. I have had moments. So my eldest is 13, and I was pregnant at the Premier League, and we moved to Norfolk. So my husband is a farmer, actually, in Norfolk. We moved to Norfolk when my daughter was born, and I came back from maternity leave and approached the Premier League and said, I really want my job back, but I've got a baby, I live in Norfolk, is there some flexibility? And I was met with a staunch, you can have your job back, or ... So ... I resigned, and I felt I was cross. It was unfair, but I didn't burn that bridge. And so the person that I had that conversation with is very senior in the Premier League now, and actually is an ally. So, it's important to, even when you're feeling aggrieved or cross, or things are unfair, it's not specifically someone's fault, then maybe just take a step back, have a breath, and just think rationally, okay, actually, do I really need to burn this bridge, or can I actually do something myself to change it or to make it different?
I like that, because times have changed and views will change.
Oh, yeah.
As well. It's a great example. And Cassie, it's not necessarily male allies within the workplace. Like you said, your dad, like my dad used to coach as well, so that's why he was really actively encouraging me to get involved in football. My brother as well, cousins. I'll tell you where I did have trouble, ex-boyfriends. And they're exes for a reason. So, in terms of my wider point, though, is about male allies. They don't necessarily just have to come from the workplace. They can come from family. And I think you and I have been very privileged in that respect to have that. But some of us within our circle are not so lucky in that respect.
Yeah, I think my dad's my greatest critic, but also my biggest cheerleader. He used to be a managing director of a company, and again, I'm very lucky that I did have him, because he understands business, he understands lots of things about the world of work, and whenever I've always been struggling, I've always been able to go to him and say, oh, what do you think about this? Even this morning, he actually drove me up to Cobham Services, where we were getting on the minibus, and he was saying to me, yeah, so just remember, shoulders back, chest out. I don't think he meant like that, and just speak slowly and clearly. And I was like, yes, thank you, Dad. I'm 51 years old, and you're 80, and I think this will go on forever. I think also that it is having groups of allies around you, and sometimes you go to people for different things. Our Academy Technical Manager, Perry, is probably my staunchest ally at work, male or female, and he is somebody who has been my champion and also a cheerleader since I started at Brighton. I had no idea what I was doing, I just have to add at this point, and he was literally walking me through, this is what being an Academy Operations Manager is. Step 1. Literally that bad. So I can never really thank him enough, because he did take me under his wing, and eventually I was able to fly, which was a wonderful thing for him to do. And he's not here today, unfortunately, but I know he would love to be. But yeah, no, I think it's just finding those little pockets of people, or those people around you who can lift you up when you're feeling low, can give you sensible advice without an agenda. And when you find those people, really hold on to them and really kind of cherish them, because they are so important. We put ourselves down so much. Let other people lift you up, and try and find the people that really make you feel good. And I think that's something that I really recognise and support with the people I work with.
Debbie, I'm going to move the conversation on a little bit about the next set of challenges that possibly these young, wonderful people might face if they're making the switch from one industry into another. Now, when I worked on the railway, I managed some of the social media channels, so I was used to getting abuse when trains were late, overrunning engineering works, etc. So I pretty much knew that working in football, I'd pretty much get the same. Now that, fast forward to today, social media is going to be a challenge for a lot of people in this room. What other challenges could they possibly face making the switch into football?
I mean, obviously, we've talked about the time commitment and the irregularity and the unsociable hours. I think, accepting that, and we shouldn't accept this, I get this, we shouldn't accept it, but what I've tried to do is when I've been met with an opinion that has been formed on the basis that I'm a woman, I've tried to really decouple that and actually think, I don't think this is my problem, I think it's yours. So I've got on with it, rightly or wrongly. I've got on with it, and I've chosen to let my actions and my achievements speak, rather than let that impact me. And I think that the realism is that probably we all need that bit of extra resilience in this industry. I didn't realise I'd got a level of resilience that I've found in the last 21 months. So I think accepting that you will need that at times in the industry, but also just going back to a sort of a higher level, if you like. I think we've got to make sure that everybody in this room that is responsible for setting a culture at an organisation, and I include myself in that, make sure that next year there are less challenges for women. And it's going to be a long process, and I think we have to accept that. But if any of us find ourselves in a position where we can influence that change and make certain that women aren't facing unnecessary criticism or personal comments on social media, that women aren't being judged just because they're a woman and somebody thinks they have no place in football. It's got to start from the board. We've got to start creating the right culture across organisations that are absolutely driving diversity. And again, just to say something a little bit controversial, I'm really hoping that in 4 or 5 years' time, I accept that we'll always need this network. But I don't want to talk about myself as a woman in football. I want to talk about myself as a leader in football or a coach in football. It's not about the fact that I'm a woman. Yes, I have a unique set of skills, I believe, that I bring to the job because I'm a woman. But I didn't get the job because I'm a woman, and I won't keep the job because I'm a woman. I'll do that by the hard work, commitment, passion, energy, and hopefully skills that I bring to the role. And I think that's where we've got to start shifting the narrative.
Floss, Debbie mentioned something quite interesting in her answer. She talked about the long process. When I first started out, I thought, it'll be a couple of years and it'll be fine. But it's actually been a long process. And someone says to me that cliche, think of it as a marathon, not of a sprint. How important is it to have that resilient in the mindset, believing in yourself, but also knowing that the journey could take a long time to get to where you want to be?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get to a place where actually people think about their mindset as they think about eating or their body or sleep. There's a lot, everyone knows that good nutrition helps you and good sleep helps you. Actually, it's all about mindset. And so it shouldn't be you work on it now and then it's done. Actually, it's all the time. So I was telling one of my friends here today that I'm a mindset coach, so I have done the work and I study it and everything. But last week, I forgot my kids. I had a phone call and I'd left them at school. And I was like, okay, so you had to sort of think about that, reset, okay, where are my priorities? But it's constant. It's constantly thinking, okay, actually, how can I make everything work? And it starts with you. And it's okay to start with you. And I think that's what I would like to see much more of. And I think will be a challenge, but I think if everyone starts it, then it's good. That actually, be selfish, work on yourself, and work on that mindset, because then the change will happen and it will be ongoing and natural, and actually that resilience is built constantly. It's like a lake. With evaporation and holes in it, your resilience lake, you have to keep finding ways of filling it up and filling those holes. And everyone's ways are different. But I think the sooner that becomes part of actually normal life and normal parlance, and it's not fixing someone. So, you know, even the sort of the club that I think has an amazing culture of Norwich City, I work with people because they're having an issue or a confidence issue, but actually I want it to be that everyone is, there are more than one of me. There's lots of coaches that are helping lots of people.
Cassie, is resilience one of your values as well? Determination, kindness, all those kinds of things?
I think you have to be resilient to work in football. I think it's a skill that, you know, you have to develop quite quickly. I certainly felt that my previous life was kind of stripped away from me fast when I sort of started working in the game. But I was lucky that I had a lot of great experiences to fall back on, and I think that did make me more resilient. So even though I wasn't working in football for the first 25 years of my career, I had a lot of experiences that made me go, okay, it's not quite the same, but it's similar, so I can probably draw on that. I think the other thing that I've really learned is to try and be, I hate the word authenticity because I know it's overused a lot, but I think try and be true to yourselves. Know who you are, know that you are valuable and you have a great deal of worth. Know that you have a skill set that you are bringing to an industry that desperately needs it sometimes. Not at Brighton Hove Albion, we're very lucky at that club. We have an amazing sort of leader and CEO who's...
Tony Bloom has done an amazing
He has.
job.
Paul Barber, who's
Barber
obviously
well, yeah.
On the board of Women in Football, a wonderful male ally. But you will go to places where it's not like that, and you have to be strong and you have to know that you are who you are. And I encourage you to look around and look at yourselves and know that, because I didn't for a really long time, and it's hard. And all of a sudden you suddenly realise, oh, okay, maybe I do have some value, maybe I do have worth. So I think resilience is really important, but also that sense of knowing yourselves. And that's sometimes difficult, but I promise you it's worth it, and it will give you a very strong platform to rise up from.
And if I can, also adding my 2 cents worth about resilience as well, because working the railway, as I was back then, you know, I was working with lots of men, white men, who'd been on the railway since they were like 16 years of age. And now they're still there in their 60s and 70s. And they've got this young sprightly thing telling them how to speak to people and communicate messages to people in the right way. So I kind of, when I made the switch into football, I was kind of ready for that because I'd already worked in a male-dominated industry, and it gave me an extra layer of confidence, even though I don't think I needed it. But it's like, I've experienced it in one industry, now I know what to deal with in the new industry.
Sorry, I was just going to say that I had similar working in film magazines. It's all run by men. And in fact, they call one very famous film magazine the House of Lords because people go there to die. You will never get a job on that magazine. The person that took the job I wanted in 1997 retired in 2020. That's what it's like. So I totally understand that, and I think that was something that I brought with me, knowing that the men that I had worked with, some of whom were wonderful, some of whom did not want a young woman telling them how to run their magazine. And that was something that I really learned from and really supported me when I first started working in football.
Debbie, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up again on the resilience. We talk a lot about needing it extra levels of that, and I've said that myself in football, but I don't want that to be translated as you have to be superhuman either. I think you do need to find people in your organisation or out of it that you can really share the reality of football. Sometimes it's probably somebody in the business that understands it. And the other thing I wanted to say about, you know, we talk about resilience sometimes in response to something that we've encountered that actually shouldn't be acceptable. I recently called out a comment in a meeting with a colleague outside of the meeting, and I said, your comment was unfair, it was inappropriate, and that could have been the end of the discussion. But luckily, we're creating a culture where we can have open and transparent discussion And I said, and also, given that that comment was made when I was the only female in a group of males, it hurt even more. And I got an apology because we're creating a culture where we can have those conversations. So I don't want it to be seen as almost put up with that kind of stuff and develop resilience to deal with it, because there's still got to be a... And I was really clear when I talked about that comment by saying, I'm not calling this out because I'm a woman. I don't want you to treat me any differently because I'm a woman. I'm calling it out because it was inappropriate. And, you know, yeah, I just don't want us to talk... We need that extra resilience, but I don't want to talk about it as we need it because there's stuff going on that shouldn't go on either, because we got to address that as well.
No, well said, well said. Okay, time to open the floor for questions. Don't let me have to come out now and choose someone to... As I get down from my high chair... to ask a question. Surely now. Oh, I'm going to... Oh, wow. Hands. Right. Bear in mind, I've got heels. Come forward, my dear, at the back, so everyone can see, if you won't mind. So I'll hand you the mic. If you'd like to say your name, where you come from, come this way. You've got come to the mic. Come to the mic so we can hear.
I'm Frankie. I'm a PE teacher, but I also volunteer for the Her Game 2 campaign, and I'm a massive Chelsea fan, so I love everything that you're doing at Kings Meadow.
Oh, thank you very much.
They haven't had people like you to do the voicing and to announce in previous years, and we needed someone like you to come in and make the match day experience a bit more accessible to everyone. So thank you, and I love to see all the new fans come in, and but if I have a chat with you afterwards, if you don't mind, about all the new stuff. But just the point on not being seen in your clubs just for being a woman, do you still feel like your clubs are championing you in your workplace, and do you feel that you're seen by your club? I know you don't want to say, oh, I've done this because I'm a woman, but do you still want to have that opportunity to showcase what it is, and to people that don't know maybe what you're doing in your clubs? Would you like that to happen?
Yeah, and thank you for the question, because it gives me the opportunity to clarify. Without a doubt, I get, and I really appreciate the opportunity that I have to influence others, and particularly young girls in our town who maybe aren't thinking about a career in football, but also young girls, young boys, you know, children all across the town. So, and people around me. So when I say I don't want that to be the main thing that people see, it's coupled with that comment that I think it's really important that people like me that are in this position are absolutely
out when they need to be, to call people out on things when they need to be called out as well.
Yeah,
That's really
but you know, we had a kids takeover day, and you know, we had boys and girls coming through the door, and we were talking to them about their careers, and it's really interesting because one of the wonderful experiences I've had in the last few months is occasionally, because my appointment was quite high profile in the town, we'll be stopped. And I get loads of dads saying to their kids, this is Debbie, and she's running the whole football club. And it's kind of like, there are mums and dads out there, and lots of dads, you know, lots of dads that are going, it's brilliant, because I've got daughters, and they're seeing this, and they get it. They get it, and I absolutely get it.
Yeah, fans of Grimsby Town would want to be able to see that in their communities and know that that's what's happening, and then that becomes the talk of everyone in the stands and the terraces, and then they come to understand what their club's really all about.
Absolutely. I just want that coupled with, you know, we're in these jobs because we're skilled, not because we're women. Yeah.
Big up Brighton and Grimsby. Big
Brighton
up.
versus Grimsby.
Right, I'm going to...
Sunday, be there.
Right, I'm going to make my way around here. Sorry, my dear, would you mind? Thank you very much. If you'd like to stand up for me, say your name or where you come from, and is your question for the whole panel or one specifically?
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm from Brighton, Hove, Albion as well. So
big up Brighton, big up the Seagulls.
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your experiences, because I think it's really helpful to hear people talk about those things. And my question is probably to Debbie, if that's okay. And I think I personally sometimes find there's a bit of torn between your head and your heart. And sometimes I think my head's the winner, because it's like, I should do this is the right thing to do, these are the things that we should be, you know, practicing and doing and taking all the right steps to progress and whatever we want to do. And I just wondered whether you've ever encountered a similar situation where it's hard to tap into one side more than the other, and how you maybe manage that balance.
Oh, that's a great question. Head versus heart. I tell you something, I've let too many boyfriends rule my heart. And then I got wise. That one's for you, Debbie.
Head and heart. I think, I think my heart leads more in this role, in that, if I'm really honest with you, sometimes my head is saying, what are you doing? You've got no life, Sell it.
Preach.
I looked at that photo earlier and I thought, that was taken 2 years ago. I look nothing like that anymore. It's kind of the stress of the role. But my heart says, wow, these moments in football that are pure joy leads everything else. So when it's really tough and I think, I could earn more money doing X somewhere else. I don't know whether that answers your question, but my heart, in terms of, I've absolutely embedded myself in that football club, and I couldn't be more passionate about it, and what it and the power of what it can do for that community. That I think that sometimes rules my head when I think, maybe you should put some boundaries in, or maybe you should say no to that. And my heart definitely leads my head when it comes to those opportunities to inspire children, where you just don't want to say no to anything because you know that you can have a massive impact. So I don't know whether that answers you.
No, it's a great question. It's a great question. Head versus heart, very much so. Yeah, great question. Another question, please. I want to go over this. I'll come back to you, lady. I will come back. Come over this way. Okay, your name, where you come from, and who your question is for, or if it's for all three.
Hi there, my name's Stella. I don't actually work in football at the moment, although that may change, hopefully at some point. I work for a very large consultancy firm working with financial service clients, so for the last 20 years, and so therefore, again, very male-dominated. What I've found as a woman who loves football and very passionate about it, it's been a huge advantage to me in a male-dominated environment, making men feel comfortable with me in the room, and building relationships and being memorable. So I just wondered, in your roles in football, if being a woman has been an advantage at any point, and any sort of anecdotal or examples of that.
Thank you.
I've got to say, I think it's a massive advantage sometimes. You go into a new workplace and you've got a different lens, you've got a different way of looking at things, you've got a different approach. And if you're working for an organisation or institution that's pretty forward-thinking, you can put that to good use. So anecdotally, when I went to the training ground at Brighton, there's free tampons in the toilets. There's sanitary bins in the toilets. There's no tampons. So when the girls come to train, if their periods start, what are they meant to do? And it was a really small thing, but I just said to our chief operating officer, do you think we could have free tampons and sanitary towels in the toilets? And he was like, oh, yeah, I don't know why we don't have it. Oh, that's a really strange thing. And I was like, yes, isn't it a strange thing that none of you men working here have noticed that there's no tampons or sanitary towels in the toilet? Anyway, 2 days later, they were there. 2 days later, the girls were able to feel comfortable when they came in. Things like that. I personally think that, having that different viewpoint is really useful. And I kind of cherish the fact that I do have it, and I want to keep using it. So I think that, it is having that kind of different view and using that different view and looking around you, if you're not working in the game, or if you are, where can I bring that to bear on my environment? We also changed the shorts the girls wear at the academy. They were playing in white shorts. We did this 3 years ago. Unfortunately, we didn't actually publicise it at the time. But there you go. We decided, after polling them, 99% of our girls said we hate wearing white shorts for all the reasons you can imagine and all the reasons that are discussed now. So I wrote a report, took that to the board. Polly, who was my amazing boss at the time, moved that forward with Nike, and Nike said you never have to wear white shorts ever again, no matter what colour the men's first team wear, because obviously we follow the men's first team in our kit. They will always wear dark shorts. It's things like that that you will notice, perhaps that others won't. So really use that.
Thank you for your great questions, everybody. That pretty much brings everything to a close. I've got 1 minute left, and I just want to ask one question each of you, if you could keep it really, really brief. My one question, then we'll wrap it up. If you were starting again, what would you do differently? Debbie, go.
I wouldn't try and be Superwoman in every area of my life. I'd give myself a bit more of a break.
Okay, don't be Superwoman. Give yourself a break. Cassie?
I'd trust myself a lot more. I'd know my own strengths and I'd believe in them.
Trust, strength and belief.
Mine is about focus. So what you focus on multiplies. And I would focus on the good stuff rather than wasting the time focusing on the lack and limitations.
Focus. Lovely, lovely stuff. And one from me, one quick one. If you're ever doing press conferences with a Premier League manager and you want to talk tactics, know your stuff. Okay, right. There you go. That's a bit of gold dust for you. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Please make some noise for our wonderful panellists, Floss, Debbie and Cassie.